So we're going to talk about the process of making Phoenix Wright Rise from the Ashes, the dub. And I'm going to split this whole timeline of how it was done into two parts, because this was a long process. This ultimately took a little bit over a year to do the entire dub. So I'll talk about the first half of that process on this part of the commentary, and that begins by starting in about, give or take, April 2010, when I was first just kind of batting around the idea of doing it, and it was just a matter of kind of thinking to myself, is it feasible? Can I do this? Because I have no training in making videos. I have none at all. I'm not trained as a filmmaker. I'm trained as an actor. All I know how to do is to perform and to some extent to record myself, and even that needed some work in terms of practice on the tech side of things. So at first it was me just batting around the idea, thinking, is this doable? I could tell this was going to be a humongous project in and of itself, just doing this one case. So it was also kind of a, can I commit to this time-wise? You know, I mean, I'm aware that this is going to be a big thing to do. Things like that. And also just going online and finding programs, obviously programs I didn't have already, that would just allow me to do it. So I had to start kind of testing things out a little bit, seeing if I could do it, if I knew how to work these programs, if I could put things together in the way that I wanted to. So I had to run a few tests, basically, before I could even do anything. Because if I started doing something and then I found out I have no clue of how to do this, then it's all for naught. So that was what I was doing for just the first couple of months, just kind of working on it in that way, to kind of seeing, okay, can I capture some video of the game? Okay, I can do that. Can I record my voice to it? Okay, I can do that. Can I put my voice and the game in comparative lockstep so that it looks like when the character moves their mouth, they're, for the most part, saying the words that we voiced? Okay, yes, I can. So it was all these kind of test elements. That was what the first couple of months was just like. And as far as the programs go, I was just, I've been using the same sound programming software that I've used forever, which is, thus far at least, that's Blaze Media Pro. And that was something I already had. I already used that just for voicing stuff at home. That's the same sound programming that I've already been working with and was comfortable working with. So that's what I used. But then I also got Cam Studio to capture the video of the game, and then also got Cyberlink Power Director, which was going to be able to take the files of the video from the game, just the video of the game, and then also the audio, and kind of put them together. So I had to go get those programs and see if I could figure out how to work them. So that was one part of it. The next part of it was assembling the cast, and ultimately that took a little while, putting the cast together. In fact, I was still negotiating with cast members, and nobody got paid. This was not a project in which money changed hands in any way. Everybody was just doing this for fun and personal connection, because we all, most of us all went to school together and stuff like that. So that was, I was in that respect just calling in, not favors per se, but just calling people up and saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. Do you want to be a part of it? And some people didn't. Some people didn't have the time or weren't particularly interested in doing that. They were focusing on other things, and that's perfectly respectable. Everybody's got to work. One of the reasons this project took so long is because this is not my job. Like I said, no money was changing hands. I certainly wasn't making any money doing this, so it took forever to do because I'm still living my life. I'm still working and trying to do the other things with my life apart from having this in the background. So it was just, in whatever time I could fit it in, working on Phoenix Wright. And so the same thing for my actors. Now, that said, I was able to put things together for my cast members once it was all assembled, that generally speaking, the time commitment for most of my actors was incredibly brief. And that was for almost all the roles, save Phoenix, Edgeworth, Emma, and the Judge. All these roles were roles that could, at least the first pass at the part, could be entirely done in just one session. Just one 3.5 to 4.5 hour session. And just, boom, their whole part is in the can. I would go back, edit, choose the takes I like the most, and then schedule them for another shorter retake session where we do just the few lines where got a better sense of what I need them to do, and so that was what that process was like. And so I ultimately, and yes, there were some people I called that they did not say yes, and then I called other people and they did say yes. That does not mean that anybody in this cast is not my quote-unquote first choice in that respect. They were just the people that I thought of first, and then I thought of somebody who may have been either better for the role or just as good. It was like, oh, maybe I can get them, and boom, they were great and they were willing to do it. I'm incredibly happy with my cast, and satisfied with the performances that everybody gave. So there's no question about how lucky I am to have assembled the cast that I did. In terms of directing, I'll talk about each individual actor when I get to that part in the commentary. But just in terms of the process of directing each actor, I would travel out to them for the most part, with the exception of Ariel, and I'll explain why with Ariel when I get to talking about her. But otherwise, I traveled out to everybody to record their parts, and so I would just take my laptop and my microphone stand, my music stand, and get everything out there, record their parts where they lived, and that would be what. And that would be where we would do all the work, and they would go through. And when you look at the script, and I got the script off of courtrecords.net, which was a great resource to me for many things. Court Records had a script that I was able to use, and it was almost entirely accurate. I have to be honest and say that there were some discrepancies in the script between the script and what's in the game, and then even worse, there are discrepancies in the game itself when there's moments in the game where they flash back to scenes you had previously seen. Some of the scenes and some of the lines in the flashback are not exact to the scene that they flash back to. And I had originally presumed, if it's a flashback, I can just use the original scene that it's flashing back to. And ultimately, because I made that assumption while I was still recording, when I finally made the videos with some of those scenes, I realized there was discrepancies, and there was nothing I could do about it. So suffice to say, that's why, in case, it's as huge a project as there is, I knew there would be probably a couple of discrepancies here and there. Those were ones I just couldn't avoid, suffice to say. And there were just some mistakes that were in the script. C'est la vie. Almost entirely perfect, 99% perfect, and that's more than you can even ask for, especially for just getting it off the internet. But when I would record the actors, you'd look in the script, and particularly during the investigation phases, each talk prompt results in a chunk of dialogue, and so we would just go through chunk by chunk, or a couple of chunks at a time, up to the point where they felt comfortable, and then maybe we would do an entire page of dialogue and move on. We would do that page of dialogue, I would stop them, I would direct them on particular lines. I'd be like, okay, that was good, or okay, no, that was something where I need you to, here's the way that line actually has to go, this is the intention behind that line, and we would go back, just do those couple of lines, and then we would move on, and we'd get the entire part done that way. And then I would go back on my own and edit through all of their performances, choosing the best possible takes. And if there were any takes done on that day, on that first session, that did not work, those would be the lines that I would mark as needing to be part of the retake session. And so there were, usually there weren't too many lines that need to be a retake, but some of them were. And that was what we would end up doing on the retake, when I would have a much more specific direction. It would be like, okay, none of these work, so this is what I specifically need you to do, and we would just work those lines in the retake session. That was the process of working with each of the actors. We would go through the part entirely on just that one day, working it as much as we could in the moment, and then once I was just listening to it purely audio, make a few adjustments, and those the adjustments where we would do in the retake session. That part, the recording part, ultimately just split up individually, matching with everybody's individual schedules. Took from about July 2010 to January 2011, give or take. Again, I was casting some people still while I was recording others. In fact, some people, one person had actually moved away by the time that some of the latter cast members had been cast, and obviously that person had already been recorded. But still, it was one of those things where it's like the time was so split up that those were the kind of inevitabilities that happened. That's why we did not record ensemble in terms of like group recording. I don't have the tech for that. I don't have a multiple amount of microphones, and I also it was schedule-wise so much easier to just figure things out between me and my one actor that I was recording in that case, than instead of trying to get everybody together in one room. So that was the timeline for the first half of the production, just getting all of the dialogue in the can. And so the second half of the production for Phoenix Wright Rise from the Ashes revolves around just the making of the videos. So starting about maybe late January of 11 of this year throughout February, I started working on the videos themselves, just trying to create the videos. The first thing that I had to do, and I'd been working on this up to that point to an extent, but I couldn't complete all that work until every bit of dialogue was in the can, because nothing was done necessarily in order. And with the retakes in particular, I didn't have definitively complete versions of every scene of dialogue until the last thing was really recorded. But the first thing I needed to do for any of the given scenes was work on the sound. What I realized was that making each video was going to be a 2-day process in terms of the amount of time that I could devote. I was really capable of doing a full video in 1 day if necessary, but that was only if I had the entire day to waste. And there were a couple of times I did do that, just on days that there was nothing else on my plate to do, and maybe I needed to catch up based on not being able to do as much on a previous day. But otherwise, in terms of the time allotment I gave myself about 2 to 3 hours each day to work on Phoenix Wright Rise from the Ashes. And so I split it up into a 2-day process to create one video. The first day is all the prep work, and the prep work involved putting together the sound. So the first thing was working on the sound quality itself, and I do not have the best quality equipment. Ultimately, it's not it's certainly not a professional voiceover environment. Nobody was recorded, for instance, in a soundproofed booth, which would definitely make the quality of recording absolutely perfect, nor a absolutely high quality professional microphone. So that was something to consider, and I cleaned up the dialogue about as much as I possibly could, especially because my computer died halfway through the process of making the videos. As some might recall, the videos did come out at a reasonably consistent pace, except for a break of about 3 weeks in the middle, because my computer crashed and died entirely, and I had to go get a new computer, reset it up with all the programs and such like that. I had every bit of dialogue and stuff like that saved separately from my computer, so I was able to access that no problems. Nothing got lost. Nothing had to be redone. But I still needed to get everything set up and kind of catch up to where I was. So on the old computer was a little less sensitive in terms of the volume of the sound that it would record. So I had to amplify sound once it was recorded. So that was a bit more of a pain in the butt, and that also affected the quality of sound that you would hear. So what I would do is I would boost the volume to necessary level. I would then clean up this is going to get very technical, but the dialogue would record as a stereo track, but all the sound would be on just the left track, and the right track was pure noise. So I would go in, these were things I actually learned as I was doing the videos. Unfortunately, when I go back and I look at the first couple of videos, I can hear all the things I wasn't doing at first. Things that I figured out as I went through the process of making the videos. Again, not a tech head. Had to figure this all out by myself. But on the sound, I realized I could erase the underlying noise track from the right track, and then I would go in, and what I eventually figured out how to do was to go in to the sound detail, and with a steady hand of detail, actually literally delete all of the noise around each and every line. So to make each piece of dialogue about as clean as I possibly could make it. So that was, and so ultimately that was the highest possible quality of the sound, particularly when you listen to the last few videos. That's what I was doing. That's how detailed the work I was doing to clean up the quality of the audio. And I would do that. Then I would condense it into a mono track and then back into a stereo track, which would actually split it up so that now you're getting the sound equally out of both speakers. So that was something I purposefully did to make that was all the process I had to do to make the sound work. I also captured the video, and when I was capturing the video of the game, I was just literally me playing the game, and knowing that the lines in the game may reveal itself at a different speed from the way we were going to necessarily be speaking it, because we did not record, to the game, visible to any of the actors. It just wasn't necessary. It wasn't feasible, and I didn't want to, put any of my actors on the spot of having to match the game in that respect. I wanted their performances to be natural, so I just took it upon myself to try and make them, make the square peg fit into a round hole. And so what I would do is, when I was playing the game, I would give myself a couple of seconds after each line, and before pressing the button to go on to the next line, so that I had a period of time with each line to get the dialogue in. Or if I had extra, I could just delete it. I could just snip that part out, cut that part out when I got into Power Director, and make the video run seamlessly. And so so that was the first day, getting the sound together and getting the video together. The second day was the making of the videos. The making of the videos involved opening up Power Director, putting all the things in, and not just the video of the game and the dialogue, but also music and sound effects. When I recorded the game video, I record it without sound, because, of course, when you play the game, because it's not voiced, there's all the little sound effects that happen with the text as it go, and I don't want that. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear the voice. So because of that, I had to put everything back for the most part. But I didn't want to put all of those sound effects back. A lot of the sound effects in Phoenix Wright are based around the idea of compensating for the lack of voices, so that you get a lot of effect of, like, oh my god, this is a big important line, big, like, but sound, things like that. All sorts of little drama noises like that were implicit in the actual game sound-wise, and I didn't want all those in there. I just wanted those for just a few lines, things that needed that kind of real, like, super emphasis kind of being underlined. And then as far as the music goes, again, I got music and sound effects again from courtrecords.net. Once again, huge credit to that excellent fan site for having all this all these resources that I could tap into. And I also realized that the music, once I figured out how to put the music on there so that the music was not overpowering in terms of volume the audio of the dialogue, which was, of course, the most important thing of the entire project, was hearing the audio of the dialogue. But once I figured out how to do that, I realized that the music playing underneath the dialogue actually masked some of the remaining crumminess of the audio quality. So I started putting more music into the game than there is in the game. There are periods in the game where there is no music playing, and those were times when I decided to have music playing. There is almost very little time in Phoenix Wright Rise from the Ashes, the dub, where you do not hear music playing and you still hear the dialogue. That was purposeful on my part, especially once I realized that it helped mask the quality and it all sounded better that way. So that was, again, purposeful. And what I had to do to match the video, I put the video of the game up, whatever part of video I was working on, and then with each piece of dialogue, I actually had to single out each piece of dialogue and place it to the line of video that it matched to, and just try to keep them separate, so that I wasn't making I would assemble, the scenes, the audio scenes of each piece of video, but I didn't want to have to make myself match the timing of the game. It was easier to make the timing of the game work in editing. So separate out each piece of dialogue, and it's more painstaking that way, but it makes a better product, where you put it to, and then you delete the excess video, and then we move on to the next line. It's a painstaking, detail-oriented process, but it makes for a better product. And that was ultimately what it took to do the videos. I would do all that, and then once all that part was done, that's with the dialogue and the effects, which was all part and parcel of requiring the video to get adjusted and cut up and edited. Once that was all finalized, then I could put the music on there, so that I didn't want to cut up the music. And in that respect, very similar to making a movie, when you kind of have an edit that the composer can then put a final piece of music, like orchestral music, to it. And you don't want to cut around the video once you've got the music in place, because cutting up music is going to sound very awkward. So that was something I tried to make sure I never did, and I think I actually succeeded in never having any mistakes on that case. So that was how ultimately a finished video premiered. And I did about 10 to 11 videos before even premiering the first one. and that was purposeful, so that I maintained, ultimately, up to the very end even, I maintained a buffer zone of about 5 to 10 videos ahead of the game. Whatever I was premiering, I was about 5 to 10 videos ahead of that. That was purposeful, just so in case anything crazy happened in my life, I was able to try and keep up with updates, so that nothing would ever really fall off in terms of scheduling, because there's a lot of parts to this video, to this whole project. And if I fell off, if the schedule slipped, we'd be here forever before this damn thing got finished. So that was all quite purposeful in that respect. And that is the second half, and thusly the full timeline of the process. That part, again, like from about February of this year to, obviously, July of this year, the entirety of making Phoenix Wright Rise from the Ashes the dub.